Tanshi Kiowa, hello, how are you all? Welcome to Homelands, originally produced on CFCR 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 territory. Andrea Letting Dishni Kashun, my name is Andrea Letting. Call me Auntie Andy if you like, and I'll be your host over this next hour. I am part settler, part relative, and an ally to everyone. I'm not a card-carrying member of any Indigenous nation, but I am related to, adopted by, and accepted by many, rejected by a few, but haters gonna hate, relators gonna relate. I am mostly Irish with some Scandinavian and a little bit of mystery, and that's the way I was raised, with a big related heart for all. I'm most related to my Batoche Métis friends and family growing up in that Mio Pimitiswin, that beautiful good life. So from the fringes of the sash, I welcome you listeners as friends, families, allies in the homelands. And together, let us welcome our guests today. So we have Laurie Shaw-Greyeyes, who's the founder of Gen7 Path, and she's joined by Michelle Joly, who is a beautiful singer, and they collaborated together that they're going to be telling you about this for the Treaty 650th anniversary, which is being celebrated this very weekend. But I'll tell you a little bit about Gen7 Path. It's an Indigenous-owned arts and cultural organization that brings history to life through music, storytelling, film, and community engagement. Their mission is to preserve Indigenous voices, celebrate cultural identity, and inspire healing and reconciliation by creating authentic experiences that connect people across generations. Through original music, live performances, educational initiatives, and creative partnerships, they honor the past while building a stronger future. Their work, including the original song 1876, which we will be talking about, commemorating the 150th anniversary of Treaty 6, reflects their commitment to truth, resilience, and the enduring spirit of Indigenous peoples. Gen7 Path, where stories become songs, where music becomes medicine, where culture inspires change. So welcome, ladies, and please tell us more about yourselves and a little bit. I understand, Laura, you have connections to the Fort Carlton area, and yeah, just tell us everything.
We will. So, Laurie Shaw-Greyeyes, I'm a proud Cree from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. I am a Greyeyes, so my family goes back hundreds of years in that specific region. My great-great-grandfather provided horses and food to Louis Riel in the 1885 rebellion. We have a lot of family in that specific region in PA, Saskatoon. Um, Duck Lake specifically, Batoche, my family went to residential school from the time my mother was 6 until she was 16. So it inspired most of the work that I do as a lyricist. Very heartfelt storytelling of our people, storytelling of our history in Treaty 6. So you go ahead.
I'm Michelle Joly, and I'm from Treaty 6 as well. I'm Métis. I have, just like you, a lot of mix of a little bit of everything in there. But I am originally from St. Paul, Alberta. I've been in the music industry for a couple decades now, releasing my own original music for about 15 years, maybe 16. And I've traveled the world, so I'm so lucky to be doing what I love. And I just wanted to thank you, Andrea, for having us here today.
Thank you for joining us. And I know you guys were in the midst of traveling, so you've come from Alberta to be, in Saskatchewan at Fort Carlton, the original place where it was signed. Tell us a little bit about that, or a lot about that.
So, with regards to the Fort Carlton area you're requesting, okay, so 1876, that's when, the three specific chiefs came to actually do the signing. So you're looking at Mistawasis, you're looking at Atakakoop. Those were the two main chiefs that actually, brought together, went through the treaty itself, and basically said, be honest, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough for our people. Our people are dying of famine. Our people, need more. We need more. This is before the 1885 rebellion. So they had forward thinking about bringing in the medicine chest for the elderly, the youth, and the people that needed it the most, which is, I always say they were forward thinking for the children and the elders that they would never meet. Yeah, it's quite inspiring. And so for me, it's really understanding. Um, Most people will say that this is a celebration. I see it's an anniversary, and it's really the presence and the memory of these forefathers, really understanding what they went through in order to sign this Treaty 6 and what our people have gone through in the last 150 years. So it's really coming together as, multiple nations or one nation to really align on our values, align on Wakotoan, which is our Cree laws, and moving our children forward into the next 7 generations.
That's beautiful. And I love that you specifically mentioned the medicine chest clause because actually it's interesting. One of my Irish relatives was Emmett Hall, who was Supreme Court Chief Justice Emmett Hall later in his career, but early in his career, he was a Treaty 6 lawyer when it was illegal for them to have lawyers. He just said, "Hey, I'm Irish. I know how it works. I'll be your lawyer for free. I know they've made it illegal for you to hire what's." And he eventually made Medicare law, but it's enshrined in it's enshrined in the Treaty 6 treaty. It's a medicine chest clause for all people in times of need, and that's where it came from. That's where our Medicare healthcare comes from. So, yeah, a really cool kind of little tie-in there. But yeah, so tell us more about the kind of the commemorations and I guess anniversary that's happening this weekend. I understand you'll be performing 1876. Tell us about the song, how that came to be, and what's going to happen this weekend.
Sure. So Michelle and I have known each other for a few years. We've collaborated on quite a few songs. So I am the pen to paper, so I'm the lyricist. Michelle is a composer and really the voice. So I always say I'm the vision and she's the voice. And we work very well together. How I met Michelle is I actually was looking for an Indigenous singer. I worked with another artist, Lee Friesen, to create a song. I did the writing of the song. He did the composing of the song. It's called Path Back to Who We Were. And it was a song started as a poem about my mother who wanted to just come back to the land after she left residential school and really wanting to get back to, who she was before she was taken at 6 years old. So that's what the song was about. But I really wanted a huge Indigenous presence. And Lee is non-Indigenous. So I said, let's get a lead singer that's Indigenous in order to really go down that road of truth and reconciliation. So I actually had to go through 3 singers. The first 3 did not want to sing with him because he was non-Indigenous. And so I made it very clear that for truth and reconciliation, we have to align on this journey. So Michelle was the 4th singer that came forward, and it just aligned beautifully. Her voice, if people want to check out on Gen7 Path on YouTube, you'll actually see the song and Michelle leading the song. It was just a beautiful, I'm going to call it a divine guiding for us to find her and to lead that song. So that specific one, and then the last one is Batosh. So we headlined at Batosh last year with Spirit of the Prairies, which is really the story of Louis Riel and the 1885 rebellion. So she led on that song, and she's also leading on 1876. 1876 was, I wanted actually a male singer first, but as it came to fruition, Michelle actually brought it to life. So I was the vision and she was the voice, and you can really feel, the fiddling was a component that I really wanted. As the Métis came in at the 1885 rebellion, the Métis started to come into Saskatchewan. And I know that when my mom was growing up, jigging was important. These dances were important when they had that maybe, few weeks or a month back from residential school. So I really wanted to enter with fiddle and exit with fiddle. And, for me, it touches my heart to have that fiddling throughout the whole song. So over to you.
Yeah, so Lori brought this song to me and she had kind of already an idea of the instrumentation, some of it, and the flow, how she wanted the instruments to come in. And so it was pretty easy to just, bring the lyrics to life. But what it really transpired in the studio, so sometimes when you're a composer and singer and you're singing somebody else's lyrics because for the most part, I write my own lyrics and my own music. But when you're working with a lyricist, sometimes the flow of the lyrics don't work for singing, right? So sometimes you have to change, like just slight small, take a word out, change the word or whatever. So a lot of that transpired in the studio actually with Peter Cameron, and one of the musicians that we have, Ian Rossiter, and our producer, so we kind of all got together and we Ian brought in like six different instruments and he just like played them over the tracks. And, I worked with the engineer there to pick the best tracks out and really kind of go with what the vision Laurie wanted, the sound that she was looking for. And so it was a progress, but a lot of it happened in studio, which is not typical for me anyway. I usually kind of produce at home and then go in and everybody knows their parts already. So this one was a little bit different, which I really liked because it was everybody kind of, had a little part to play in the not the composition, but in their own respect, their own parts weren't really written out. Like for Peter Cameron, yeah, but he did change some of the melody lines. And so it was really cool for me to be a part of a project that had so much meaning behind it and like Laurie's vision. And then we had these musicians that also are non-Indigenous, but also had such a beautiful part to play in the, complete finished product of this song. And I think that's really important because it wasn't just me and Laurie, like it was Laurie had the vision. I brought those lyrics to life, and then we had the musicians as well that we were all working together. And at the end of the day, that's really what, Gen 7 Path, the project is about. It's about bringing people together, the non-Indigenous and the Indigenous people.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's almost like making a treaty, making a song. You kind of have everybody
Yeah.
collaborating together with a shared vision. Hopefully the song turns out better than the treaties did. No, no, it's a beautiful song and the video
Thank
is
you.
so lovely. I really urge people to look up it. You just look up 1876 and it should show up on YouTube and it's beautifully shot. Tell us a little bit about shooting the video, how that all happened.
Yeah.
Well, we hired a videographer that I've used in the past for my photos. So actually the photos, he was the photographer for those photos for this project. And we kind of talked, he had kind of an idea and Lori had an idea of what we wanted, but in the moment it changed. We went down to the river in the morning and it was just such a beautiful day. It wasn't too hot, wasn't, too windy, but just a little bit of everything in there. And it was really like magical. We had the dancers come in and just to be on the river. It's a beautiful place anyway, but to be like shooting a video on the river and talking about the North Saskatchewan River, I think for me it was a really special moment because I was born in Edmonton actually, but I haven't spent a lot of time there in my life. Like I was born there, moved away and came back. And I always, when I come to Edmonton, I'm like, oh, let's like go to the river. So it was kind of like home for me. It was like this homey feeling.
And I mean, the song itself borrows from the treaty language, as long as the rivers flow. So it was so apt to actually have the flowing river right there that the treaty is based on. It was just beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us about what's happening at Fort Carlton this weekend and that kind of thing and the
Sure.
performance.
So Fort Carlton, they're celebrating the 150th anniversary of Treaty 6. It starts actually today. They had the opening ceremonies and it closes with the commemoration on Sunday. So there's a treaty music showcase on Friday and Saturday. So on Saturday will be Fawn Wood headlining, and on Friday night it'll be Michelle Joly. So she'll be singing some of the Gen 7 Path songs and maybe one song of her own. So she'll be headlining, and I'm just so honored to be part of it, right? There'll be a lot of I think there's six reserves in and around that specific land. And so they're going to be like Muskeg Lake Cree Nation, One Arrow, Mr. Wasis, Atakakub, like they'll all be in Beardies. A lot of them will be coming from their specific land over to Fort Carlton just to commemorate with us. And we're bringing the music, so I'm just so honored to be part of it.
So awesome. I had a friend posting on Facebook looking to see if anybody wanted to join the Unity ride on horseback. And I was like, oh, I wish I could just take
That's
time
so
off work and
cool.
jump on a horse. But I know there's going to be people coming from horseback. I saw Beardy's put a big kind of post out saying, hey, we're going to have so many guests to the territory. Make sure all your businesses are open and stocked. And
Yes.
it's going to be a big influx of people. So I think it's really exciting if people can make it out. I know to another community that I belong to is getting a bus and going out together. And that's on Friday, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could just take off time off work again, but ride a horse, take a bus, whatever. But
6 p.m. is the big feast. It starts at 6, and the music will start between probably 7 or 7:30 until 10, and then they have a drone show at 10 o'clock.
amazing. Yeah. I mean, I expect there'll be so many people out there, not just from the reserves, but from everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're excited. This is going to be one of our biggest performances. We've done, some performances in Saskatchewan. Most have been in Alberta, but we're just excited to be here and to share we said songs is medicine, really. They're healing words. They're profound, and we want people to resonate with the words. And really to enjoy. There's a component in the song where it says 150 years, probably 15 times. And so what we're going to say on stage is we want you to sing with us. We want you to sing those 150 words or 150 years because it's important. It's important to be part of this anniversary.
I think that's beautiful. I love it when there's kind of like a call and response, or there's a portion where, this everybody can join in, and that's the perfect place. That's
Yes.
awesome. That's awesome. So tell us more about Gen 7 Path, and did I say it, 7 Gen Path, Gen 7? I keep flipping it back and forth, but tell us more about where that all came from and your journey with that.
Sure. So I'm going to start when I was 5 years old on Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. My cookum and I were making bannock, and my cookum said to me, Laurie, when you get older, I want you to remember your people. I want you to remember where you're from, and I want you to always be humble. So she died a few years later, and so my whole life, I've been trying to find what she meant with regards to remembering your people and remembering where you're from. And so I started to create these poems, and they became songs. And I know that that was the path I was to go down, is to remember through storytelling in the songs and the words, medicine as healing. My cookum was a medicine healer for Muskeg Lake Cree Nation, so I know it's within me to be a healer and a spirit talker. So I created Gen 7 Path under Gen 7, came actually from, excuse me, Crazy Horse. He said in 1842, after 7 generations of the white men that came to Turtle Island, there'll be a revolution and the redskin will rise. And that time is now. So we're getting back to who we were before the world told us we had to change. And so that's why I created Gen 7, to remember our songs, to remember our culture, and to really keep our resilience, our strength within our next generation. And we do that through just bringing to life the stories of our history.
That is so beautiful. I just had chills and goosebumps when you were saying that. Um,
Yeah, me too.
Michelle, tell us a bit about the song, and and what it's like performing it and kind of I don't know. Have you performed at other places yet, or will this will be the first time? Hey, yeah.
Yeah, so actually tomorrow morning we're gonna have the first performance on Global News. So that's going to be exciting. We were hoping to have like a multi-instrumentalist to play some mandolin and some guitar on it, but turns out he couldn't make it. So we're singing with the track, which is okay too, because then you get the, whole experience of all the instruments. But like when I was creating the song too, I thought like what the main element of like the traditional indigenous peoples is the drum, right? Like the heartbeat of Mother Earth. So we always try to keep that as our drum. We don't want to, we want to keep those traditional elements of the culture, right? So we might perform with some drums. Me and Peter Cameron might play the drum, and we're going to have the fiddle player Gary Lee there, which is really special to me because so my Métis comes from my grandfather's side. Melvin Ward was his name. And he has a brother who just passed away. He was 101 years old, my Uncle Norman, and he was a fiddler. And he knew Gary Lee, the fiddler on our track. And so I was at my uncle's funeral and I had filmed it. And I was editing the filming and I seen Gary many times on the film, right? And so we had me and Laurie were together at the Deep Freeze Music Festival, and there they were honoring our song, our Spirit of the Prairies film, our music video. We won like local hero award for that. And we happened to see Gary on stage. And I said, I know that guy. And then Laurie was like, I know him too. So we happened to both meet Gary separate times, right? So then Gary comes over, and then Gary told me that he knew my uncle very well. He knows a lot of people in my family really, really well. And so singing this song, even though Gary isn't Métis or Indigenous, I think maybe he said he has a little bit, but he's not really sure.
He's from Saskatoon.
Yeah, having him there is so special because when he came in to record his parts on this song, he opened up his fiddle case and there was a picture of my Uncle Norman with his fiddle from the memorial, from like the funeral, right? And I was like, oh my God, Uncle Norman's here.
Yeah.
And so it was just this overwhelming feeling of like, this is so right. And Gary's here actually tonight. We're gonna, have a little practice before tomorrow, but we're hoping to have him perform with us tomorrow as well. But even if he doesn't perform in the morning with us, he's gonna be there on stage with us. And for me, that's just I know I'm gonna feel my uncle there and my grandpa too, because they're together now. And I just think like, oh my God, I wonder what they're thinking, like that Gary's performing with me when, they knew Gary so well towards the end of their lives. So yeah, I'm excited to perform this song.
And I'm excited to hear how it goes. I'll have to tune in to Global tomorrow. But
I
I'm
don't
sure
think
it'll
it's
be
going to be
amazing.
live.
Okay.
I asked, but I don't think it's going to be live, but yeah,
Okay.
maybe we'll let you know when it's going to be aired.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. We can put the airing actually underneath the YouTube video. So we've got about maybe another 5 minutes before we head to break. But what else did you want to talk about in terms of Fort Carlton before we go to a commercial? Fort Carlton, 1876, the 150 years, the treaties. What else would you like to cover?
Well, we can talk a little bit about the history of that land. I think it's important to talk about the history of the land and what actually happened on that land in the 150 years. Yeah. So you think about I believe it's 1842, when they actually implemented the Indian Act in Canada. So it's, you think almost 200 years, right? Like it's significant time that the Indian Act has been put in place. And then 1876 is, when Treaty 6 came in place. But the treaties, most people don't realize the treaties actually were in place before the provinces were in place. And we won't get into it, but we're from Alberta, and I'm going to keep it at that, right? So I think it's important for people to understand what the treaties mean. The treaties were in place, and it was a signature with the Crown, not the Government of Canada. And it's treaty, really the laws between the treaties and the respect for people, putting the specific medicine chest in place and provisions. So most people don't realize, like, we were one of the only treaties that actually had a special provision that was actually implemented in the treaties. Most other treaties, it was already set, it was already delivered, they reviewed it and, not modified. We're one of the only ones that were modified. Treaty 6 actually touches Saskatchewan, touches Alberta, and there's a tip that actually touches Manitoba. Most people don't realize Treaty 6 actually goes between 3 provinces, right? So I think that that's really important to understand. And in that specific region, 1885 was the Northwest Rebellion. So that was 300 Indigenous. So you have the Dakotas, you have the Cree, and you have the Métis that had the stance in Batoche, from Duck Lake, Fish Creek into Batoche, with 3,000 Northwest Mounted Police, right? So that and why was there a stance? It was because our people were dying. The buffalo was being hunted. There was, famine. There was disease, and our people were dying by the thousands. So Louis Riel came and he stood with our people. The Métis started to come into Saskatchewan and into Alberta, and he took a stand. Louis Riel actually had a quote that said, 100 years later, it'll be the artists that'll be recognized. It's the artists that'll come through. And I take that to heart because, it's important to understand the stories. And it's over 150 years now, and it's the artists that are standing and telling the stories. In 1886 is when residential schools started and were implemented in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And the one in Duck Lake was over 100, I think it was 102 years in place. For my family, it was mandatory that they had to go to residential school. So I lost uncles. I lost aunts from, uncles from alcohol poisoning. They actually passed away. And a lot of trauma for our families. They say it estimates 25% of children either died in care or post-care of residential schools. And the second generation, so which is what I am from residential school, trauma that we went through, having to go through and with survivors, and they're dealing with their pain. They're coming out, they don't have the skill sets to be parents, and they leave at 17 and 18 years old and don't know who they are, right? They've lost their culture, they've lost their language. No, sorry, we have a visitor here. And it's traumatic. So our people, I always say, when you see that person on the street, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And remember what they've went through, what their parents have gone through, what their grandparents have gone through. We're just trying to get back to who we were before, again, the world told us we had to change. And we are doing that. We're doing that. We're storytelling. We're doing that through Kotawan teachings. And we're bringing our children back to who they were. Yeah. I'll be telling my own grandson. I know some stories about our people. So from residential schools to where we are now, it's been a battle. It's been very hard. We've lost like a lot of people from trauma, but we're still standing. We're still here. And I always say, whether Indigenous or non-Indigenous, we're all treaty people. And we need to respect each other and come under that sacred tree.
That's a beautiful thing to end on for our first half, and we'll be right back after these commercials, so don't turn that dial.